started off with this is the way a lot of my honey-producing apiaries would look during the winter, with regular two-story colonies underneath them and nucleus colonies packed on top of them. And this is my supply of extra bees, bees to use myself or bees for sale. It's almost like having the bees in cold storage. It's a thing you can replace your packages with, and there's so many advantages to doing so if you can. To get your bees all onto a track where they're constantly selected in your own environment, your own conditions. The whole thing starts to build on itself from one year to another, from constantly selecting those that are doing the best for you. And after 3 or 4 years, this flywheel grid starts to take over, and the whole thing becomes like Raoul Robinson describes it, the self-organizing. And this is one of the key principles we have to try to focus on in the future is the self-organizing agriculture. That's what I'm going to talk about in the third program. But anyway, just to say again, this whole system that I'm using, my system of raising queen cells, of overwintering nucleus colonies, creating them in isolation, so many things I got from the work of Brother Adam. I never got to visit to actually meet Brother Adam, but I did have some correspondence with him. He always responded right away to any time I sent him a letter or a note answering my questions. That was very interesting. But again, his work, I really consider him to be just one of the greatest of beekeepers, and he solved a whole series of problems that originated with the Isle of Wight disease, the mite in England, and his methods, I think, have a much wider application than they are receiving right now. Again, that was saw Brother Adam and his isolated mating apiary at the beginning. In the background there, those trees, you can see, just barely see the mating hives. Those are all trees that he planted there at the beginning of his time using that mating station. So you can see how long they have been there in the Dartmoor cell building yard right at home at the Abbey. And these are the mating nucleus colonies, which are set up in a quite similar way to the ones I'm using. Again, this was a Nadan size equipment and using Langstroth size equipment. The only thing I've done with this system is to make it a little more productive and streamlined to be more productive with products for sale. So anyway, just the whole gateway to this whole thing is learning how to raise queen cells. And that's the place, definitely the place to start. The queens, the quality of the queen cells, the way that the larvae are fed during the process, has a huge influence on the success of the colony that is eventually headed by that queen. So it's really worthwhile to spare no trouble and expense and learning to do this in a way that we can always get good quality queen cells. And anyhow, as I said before, I tried. I spent 3 whole summers really experimenting with all the different methods that Harry Laidlaw wrote about in his book Contemporary Queen Rearing. I think that's an excellent book, and all the methods in there, they're probably all suitable for certain conditions. And I finally did go to settle on the method that Brother Adam uses. And all these methods of queen rearing are similar in certain ways. They're always colonies that are actively processing either nectar or syrup, and create the conditions under which bees normally will raise queen cells. And those 3 are either the emergency response, where the queen is gone, they need to raise a new one; supersedure response, where they have a queen that's still in the hive, but replace her while she's still there, and the third one is the swarming impulse. Brother Adam's system uses mostly the swarming impulse to get the cells, and we all know both supersedure cells and swarm cells can be very good, result in very good queens, and almost all of brood methods, cell building methods are based on those two impulses. Now, I'm going to describe the method that I use in a little bit of detail, but I don't really intend for it to be, an actual primer for you to count all the steps and everything. I'd really just like to convey just a feeling for the process and a little bit what's involved, because you need to adopt your own method that works well for you. You have to study the methods a little bit, you have to try them out, you have to do them repeatedly, because there are several things, a lot of things that can go wrong, which if you really decide to do this, sooner or later you will encounter them. And you have to be prepared to watch what's happening all the time. Conditions are always changing, and you have to keep learning until you come up with a method that fits in really well with who you are, what your nectar flow situations are, the timing of it. And so, let's see what I have next. And again, you want to start with, of course, the cell building process. You want to propagate bees that are going to be good for your situation. So I use this slide. This was a slide, this is a frame of brood from a colony after there had been no treatment applied for 4 years. So by the time 4 years have gone, I have colonies that can live on their own, produce healthy brood without treatments. Okay, there's a colony that I really like to propagate. And again, after another few years, we have colonies that where the individual queen is 4 years old and still producing really nice, healthy brood. Again, these bees are not Africanized. You see the brood right into the corners there. This is just because the summer was very dry. I know it's not much of a honey flow, but she's still a very vigorous queen. And normally the corners of those frames would be filled with honey, especially with the Russian type bees that I have. Again, I clip all the queens that come from the isolated mating apiary, so I know for sure 2 or 3 or 4 years later that it is a queen that we caught that came from the isolation apiary, so there is no mistake. Marking queens is fine. It makes them easy to see that the bees do chew those markings off sometimes, and especially by the time you get to 3 or 4 years old, there starts to be some question whether it is the same queen. So anyway, this is Michael Palmer. He may have even showed you this very slide because I got the picture from him. And it's just showing the way that he keeps his breeder queens, and this is the same way that I started out with, just taking a hive body and partitioning it, a space for 3 combs with an excluder partition. So the queen is always on one of those 3 combs, and you can put an empty comb, a clean, dark comb in 4 days before you want to have the larva for grafting. Again, a lot of this it's all timing related, and you have to do the steps at just the right time. It's not complicated at all. It starts to get a little complicated when you want to produce a large number of queen bees, and you have to decide how often you want the queen cells, and that in fact will determine what type of a cell building method you would use. If you want to have queen cells every day, a certain number of queen cells maturing every day, you would use a different type of cell building system than if you want to have a big batch every week or at a longer interval. And so that's the second scenario is the way that I raise my queen bees. want to go through a two-step process with the swarm boxes and regular finishing colonies, which are just two-story colonies with the queen confined below an excluder in the bottom box, and the top box, queenless, the top box for finishing the cells, where a young brood is rotated up into the top to attract the young bees on a regular schedule. Again, I tried all those; they do work well, but I'm going to describe for this. I can answer questions about that. I'm going to describe the method that I use. And again, this is I like that system of having the queen in the excluder partition with 3 combs, and every 8 days I put a new comb in there and move a comb with sealed brood to the other side of the excluder. It works great for about the first 2, 3, or maybe 4 8-day sessions. After that, the box starts getting too crowded. You can take brood out, but they still start to build up too many field bees. Whenever there's a honey flow, just every empty cell in the hive, this whoosh starts to fill up with honey, and all of a sudden there's no place for the queen to lay eggs at just the right time. So I've tried different ways of getting around that problem. And just the last couple of years, I've been using a even simpler system where when I find the breeder queen in an apiary, usually in a 2-story colony, so that queen will be 3 years old and spent her part of her first summer in the nucleus colony, overwintered that first winter in the nucleus colony, spent her second season in a honey-producing colony that had really good results, with a good crop of honey and a healthy brood nest the following spring. And so then she'd be in her 3rd year, and I'd take her out of that honey-producing colony in the spring. What I'm doing now is just to take one frame with a queen bee for good frame of brood and to put it into just a hive body with a bottom board, and a good frame of honey and pollen, good food right next to that comb, and then 1 frame of foundation. And then I shake 3 or 4 more frames of brood into that box, from the same colony. And then I requeen that donor colony and take the queen